There is a profound misunderstanding in the way we approach our own exhaustion. When you feel drained, worn out, unable to find joy even in the simplest moments, the mind instinctively assumes you are merely tired. You think, perhaps you need more sleep, a vacation, a break from work. You look to physical causes because that is what you have been taught, to see fatigue as a bodily problem. And yet, despite resting, despite slowing down, the heaviness persists. No amount of sleep seems to lift it. Days off bring no renewal. You wake up and the weight is still there. This is because what you are experiencing is not simply physical exhaustion. You are spiritually drained. Spiritual drain is subtle. It does not announce itself with dramatic symptoms. It creeps in quietly, disguising itself as ordinary tiredness. But its nature is entirely different. Physical tiredness comes from exertion, from doing too much. Spiritual drain comes from being disconnected, from not doing what truly nourishes your soul. When you live in a way that is out of harmony with your inner self, when you silence your true desires, when your days are filled with tasks that have no meaning to you, your spirit slowly withers. You may not notice it at first. You keep going, pushing through, believing this is normal. But deep inside, a quiet emptiness grows. Many people spend their entire lives in this state without realizing it. They keep searching for external solutions to an internal problem. They change jobs, seek new relationships, buy things, distract themselves with endless entertainment, yet the fatigue remains. They believe they are chasing rest, but what they are truly yearning for is a return to themselves. For it is not the body that is truly tired, it is the soul that is depleted. You see, your spirit needs more than sleep. It needs meaning. It needs connection. It needs to feel alive in the work you do, in the people you meet, in the thoughts you entertain. When life becomes a series of mechanical routines, when every action is disconnected from your deeper self, the spirit suffers. And this suffering manifests as a profound, persistent exhaustion. But acknowledging this is not easy. To admit that you are spiritually drained requires facing uncomfortable truths. It demands you look at how you have been living. Are you honoring your true self, or are you living according to the expectations of others? Have you been listening to your inner voice, or have you drowned it out with noise and distraction? Are you connected to a purpose that gives your life meaning, or are you simply going through the motions? These are difficult questions, yet they are necessary, because until you confront them, you will continue to mistake spiritual depletion for physical tiredness. You will keep trying to fix a spiritual crisis with physical remedies and wonder why nothing changes. The body is wise. It signals when you are out of balance. But when you feel tired all the time, even after resting, that signal is not coming from your muscles. It is coming from your neglected inner world. Your soul is asking for attention. It is asking you to pause, to reflect, to reconnect. This reconnection does not require grand gestures. It begins with simple acts of honesty. To sit with yourself, without distractions, and ask, what am I truly feeling? What have I been avoiding? What does my soul long for that I have been denying? These questions are not mere introspection. They are the beginning of healing. When you start living in alignment with your true self, when your actions reflect your inner values, you will notice something remarkable. The heaviness lifts. Not because your circumstances have dramatically changed, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself. Energy returns not from external sources, but from within. You realize that true vitality comes from living in harmony with your soul. It is a profound shift. From chasing rest to cultivating inner connection. From seeking escape to embracing authenticity. This is the real cure for spiritual drain. Sleep will rest the body, but only self-honesty will revive the spirit. And so, the next time you feel exhausted, pause before assuming it is merely physical. Ask yourself whether it is your body that is tired or your soul that is yearning to be heard. In that moment of honest reflection, you may find the first spark of true renewal. Because you are not just tired, you are being called back to yourself. There is a quiet tragedy in the way we have learned to live disconnected from ourselves. Every day we drift further away from who we truly are, not because we desire it, but because we believe we must. From a young age we are taught to fit in, to please others, to behave in ways that ensure acceptance. Slowly, without realizing, we begin to silence our inner voice. We compromise a little here, hide a little there, until eventually we forget the sound of our own soul speaking to us. This disconnection is not dramatic. It is subtle, gradual, like a slow erosion. You wake up one day and feel hollow, not knowing why. You are busy, surrounded by people, perhaps even admired, yet inside there is a cold emptiness. This is the price of neglecting your inner self. When you no longer live in alignment with your true nature, when your days are dictated by obligations that have nothing to do with your deepest values, the spirit suffers, and the body, in its wisdom, responds with exhaustion. You may think you are tired from working too much, from responsibilities, from the noise of the world. But beneath it all, you are drained because you have lost connection with what makes you feel alive. You are living a life of appearances, not of authenticity. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you smile while hiding your pain, every time you suppress your true desires to meet expectations, you abandon yourself a little more, and with each abandonment, your spiritual energy weakens. People often speak of burnout as if it is a result of doing too much. But spiritual burnout is not caused by action alone. It is caused by misaligned action. You can work tirelessly on something you love and feel invigorated, yet a single hour spent betraying your true self can leave you exhausted for days. This is because your energy does not come from the surface level of tasks and schedules. It comes from the depth of alignment between your inner truth and your outer life. When you live disconnected, you create a fracture within. On the outside, you present an image, perhaps successful, perhaps admired, but on the inside you feel like a stranger to yourself. This inner division is profoundly draining. It requires constant effort to maintain a facade, to keep up appearances, to suppress the quiet voice that keeps reminding you of what you truly want. Over time, this effort becomes unbearable. The soul cannot thrive in exile. It calls you back through the language of exhaustion. Many try to solve this disconnection by adding more distractions. They seek external validation, accumulate achievements, chase fleeting pleasures. But none of these can fill the void left by the absence of self-connection. No amount of external success can substitute for the peace of living in harmony with your inner self. You may win the applause of the world and yet feel utterly empty within. To heal this spiritual drain, you must reverse the direction of your attention. Instead of constantly looking outward for answers, you must turn inward. You must become willing to meet yourself again, without judgment, without pretense. Ask yourself, when was the last time I acted purely from my own truth? When was the last time I allowed myself to feel without censorship, to express without fear, to choose without seeking approval? This is not an easy path. Reconnecting with your inner self means facing the parts of you that you have ignored. It means acknowledging your unmet needs, your suppressed dreams, your hidden pain. But in this honest confrontation lies your salvation. The more you embrace your authentic self, the more energy returns to you. You no longer waste your vitality on maintaining false identities. You become whole again. It is a gradual process, a gentle remembering of who you are beneath the layers of conditioning. You do not need to change the world overnight. You simply need to begin with small acts of truthfulness. Saying no when you mean no. Allowing yourself to rest when you are tired. Pursuing what brings you quiet joy, even if it seems insignificant. With each act of self-connection, You mend the fracture within, and as you do, the weariness begins to lift. There is a deep peace in living authentically. It does not mean life becomes easier, but it becomes lighter. The weight of pretending is lifted. The constant tension of self-betrayal dissolves. You stand in the world as you are, not as who you think you should be. And in that space of alignment, energy flows freely once more. Remember, you are not here to live someone else's life. You are not here to fulfill roles that suffocate your spirit. You are here to live in connection with your own soul. And the moment you choose to return to yourself, you will feel the difference, not in your mind, but in the very vitality of your being. Because true rest comes not from escaping life, but from living it in alignment with who you really are. One of the most overlooked reasons for your deep spiritual exhaustion is how you carry the emotions of others without realizing it. You see, human beings are not isolated islands. We are connected, more deeply than we understand, through invisible threads of empathy, responsibility, and projection. Often, what you believe is your own suffering is not yours alone. You absorb the pain, the frustrations, the disappointments of those around you, thinking it is your burden to bear, but this silent weight crushes your inner vitality. It begins so innocently. Perhaps you are the one everyone turns to for advice, for comfort, for support. Perhaps you were raised to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can help, fix, or save others. And so, without questioning, you open yourself like a vessel, allowing the emotional debris of others to fill you. You listen to their struggles, you hold their fears, you internalize their anger, and little by little, you mistake their wounds for your own. This is not compassion. Compassion allows you to be present with another's pain, without losing yourself in it. But what many of you do is quite different. You merge with the suffering of others, taking it into your own energy field, depleting yourself in the process. You do this not out of malice, but out of a misguided sense of duty. You believe that by carrying the emotional weight of others, you are helping them, but in truth, you are only harming yourself, and them as well. When you take responsibility for emotions that are not yours, you disrupt a sacred balance. Each person is meant to face their own shadows, to learn from their own suffering, to grow through their own struggles. By absorbing their pain, you rob them of this essential journey. And you betray your own inner peace. You drown in emotions that were never yours to process, never yours to heal. This emotional entanglement is exhausting. It creates a state of constant inner tension, as if you are carrying a backpack full of invisible stones. You feel heavy, drained, irritable, but you cannot pinpoint why. That is because the source of this exhaustion is subtle. It is not the result of your own life events, but the accumulation of unprocessed energies from others. The mind may not notice, but the soul always does. The only way to reclaim your energy is to learn the art of emotional boundaries, not walls of indifference, but boundaries of clarity. You must recognize what belongs to you and what does not. When someone shares their pain, you can offer empathy without absorption. You can listen without identifying. You can care without carrying. This distinction is vital for your spiritual well-being. Many fear that setting emotional boundaries is selfish, but true selfishness is abandoning yourself for the sake of pleasing others. Protecting your inner space is an act of self-respect, not of coldness. When you preserve your own energy, you are better equipped to offer genuine support, not from a place of depletion, but from a place of strength. Think of yourself as a vessel of light. If you allow every passing shadow to enter and settle within, your light becomes dim. But if you maintain the clarity of your inner space, you can radiate that light outward, gently illuminating others without losing your own essence. This is the power of healthy boundaries. They do not separate you from others. They allow you to meet others from a place of wholeness, not fragmentation. Consider, you must also be mindful of how much you unconsciously invite the emotions of others. Sometimes the need to feel needed becomes a hidden trap. You may unconsciously seek out roles where you are the rescuer, the fixer, the emotional caretaker. This dynamic feeds the ego but drains the soul. The more you invest in being indispensable to others, the more you lose touch with your own needs, desires, and inner peace. Healing begins with awareness. Observe your interactions. Notice when you start to feel tired after being with certain people. Reflect on whether you are truly helping or merely absorbing their unresolved emotions. Practice releasing what is not yours. Imagine their pain as a heavy cloak you have been wearing, and gently, consciously take it off. Return it to them with compassion, but do not let it stay within you. This practice is not about isolation. It is about integrity. You remain connected to others, but through a channel of clarity and respect. You recognize their pain, you offer your presence, but you no longer sacrifice your own well-being in the process. And as you maintain this sacred boundary, you will feel your energy returning. The fog of exhaustion will lift. The weight on your chest will ease. You will remember what it feels like to be light, vibrant, and at peace within yourself. Because you were never meant to carry the emotional burdens of the world on your back. Another deep source of your spiritual exhaustion comes from the constant war you wage against your own inner needs. You live in a world that glorifies productivity, achievement, and relentless forward motion. In this noise, the subtle whispers of your soul are drowned out. You convince yourself that rest must be earned, that stillness is laziness, that your worth is measured by how much you do, how much you give, how much you endure. But the soul does not thrive in such conditions. It is not a machine. It is a living, breathing presence that requires care, attention, and space to simply be. You are not just physically tired, you are spiritually malnourished. Your days are filled with obligations, distractions, and demands that pull you further away from yourself. You rush from task to task, meeting deadlines, fulfilling expectations, keeping up appearances. And yet, despite all this activity, you feel empty. This emptiness is not a failure. It is a signal that your inner life has been neglected for far too long. In moments of silence, you might sense it, a quiet ache, a longing for something deeper, something real. But instead of turning inward, you reach for external solutions. More work, more entertainment, more noise. Anything to avoid facing the uncomfortable truth that you have become disconnected from your own soul. And in this disconnection, spiritual exhaustion takes root. The human spirit requires nourishment beyond the material. It needs beauty, meaning, reflection. It needs moments of solitude where you can listen to the quiet voice within. But these needs are subtle, and the modern world teaches you to ignore anything that does not scream for your attention. This is the great tragedy of spiritual life today. You are trained to be efficient, but not to be whole. Consider how often you override your true needs. When you feel the pull to rest, you push through. When you crave silence, you fill the space with noise. When your soul longs for meaning, you distract yourself with superficial pursuits. Over time, this becomes a habit and then a way of life. You become a stranger to yourself, constantly moving yet going nowhere. This inner split is the real cause. Healing begins when you dare to pause, not to collapse from burnout, but to consciously choose rest as a sacred act, to create space in your life for reflection, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. In these quiet moments, you reconnect with what is essential. You remember who you are beneath the roles, beneath the noise, beneath the endless demands. You rediscover the simple joy of being. But rest is not merely the absence of activity. True rest is a return to yourself. It is the moment when you allow your soul to breathe, to speak, to be heard. It is when you step out of the current of constant doing and immerse yourself in the still waters of being. In these moments, your energy is not consumed but replenished. Your spirit finds its rhythm again, not dictated by the clock, but by the natural flow of your inner life. You must understand, choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of responsibility. For when you are disconnected from your own soul, everything you offer to the world becomes hollow. Your relationships suffer, your work loses its meaning, your joy fades into a distant memory. But when you are connected within, everything you touch is infused with vitality, authenticity, and presence. The world will always demand more of you. There will always be another task, another obligation, another crisis to address. But if you do not draw a line, if you do not create sacred spaces of rest and reflection, you will continue to deplete yourself until there is nothing left to give, and no one else can do this for you. The choice to honor your inner needs must come from within. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly rested? Not just your body, but your soul. When was the last time you sat in silence, not out of boredom, but out of reverence for your inner life? When was the last time you allowed yourself to simply be, without guilt, without shame, without the compulsion to prove your worth through endless doing? The path to healing your spiritual exhaustion is not found in doing more. It is found in doing less, but with greater depth, greater presence, greater connection to your inner self. It is in remembering that you are a human being, not a human doing. Only in stillness can you hear the whispers of your soul calling you home. There is a quiet suffering that many carry, unnoticed even by themselves. It is the suffering of living a life disconnected from meaning. You may find yourself moving through your days, performing tasks, meeting obligations, appearing functional to the outside world, yet deep within, there is a void. This is not because life itself is empty, but because the connection between your soul and your outer existence has been severed. When you are spiritually drained, it is often a sign that you have lost touch with what gives your life meaning beyond mere survival. Human beings are not sustained by food and shelter alone. You require a sense of purpose, a reason for being, something that resonates with the core of who you are. Without this, even the most successful life will feel hollow. You may possess material wealth, social status, and countless distractions, yet none of these can substitute for a life infused with genuine meaning. And when that deeper connection is missing, exhaustion sets in. Not the kind that sleep can fix, but the kind that seeps into your very being. The tragedy lies in how easy it is to lose sight of this need. From an early age, you are taught to seek validation from external achievements. You are praised for what you do, not for who you are. Slowly, you begin to equate your worth with your performance. You chase after goals that may never have been your own, following paths laid out by others, driven by expectations that do not nourish your soul. In this relentless pursuit, the question of meaning becomes obscured, and yet, deep within, your soul remembers. There comes a moment when this disconnection becomes unbearable. You feel it in the emptiness of your victories, in the restlessness that no accomplishment can soothe. You feel it in the quiet hours, when the noise fades and you are left alone with yourself. In these moments, the longing for meaning surfaces. It whispers that there is more to life than ticking boxes, more than playing roles that do not reflect your true essence. To reconnect with meaning is not a simple task. It requires courage to step away from the noise, to question the narratives you have been told, to listen deeply to your own inner voice. Often, meaning is not found in grand gestures or dramatic changes. It is discovered in the small, quiet moments where you feel most alive. It could be in creating, in helping others, in moments of deep connection, in nature, In contemplation, meaning arises when your actions align with the deepest truths of your being. One of the greatest obstacles is the belief that meaning must come from outside of you. You wait for life to hand you a purpose, for circumstances to deliver clarity. But meaning is not something given, it is something created through conscious engagement with life. It is born from the questions you dare to ask, the choices you make, the values you live by. When you live in alignment with your authentic self, even the simplest tasks can become expressions of meaning. To heal your spiritual exhaustion, you must reclaim this responsibility. No one else can tell you what will nourish your soul. The journey inward is yours alone. It is an invitation to explore what truly matters to you, to cultivate a relationship with your own inner world. This is not a selfish act. On the contrary, a life lived with meaning radiates outward, touching others, bringing depth and authenticity to every interaction. The world does not need more people who are merely busy. It needs people who are alive from within, who act from a place of deep connection and purpose. When you reconnect with what gives your life meaning, a subtle but profound transformation occurs. The fatigue that once seemed insurmountable begins to lift, not because your circumstances have changed, but because you are now fueled by a different kind of energy. An energy that arises from within, inexhaustible as long as you stay connected to your true self. This path is not without its challenges. It requires honesty, introspection, and the willingness to let go of illusions. But the reward is a life that feels whole, fulfilling, and deeply alive. You will no longer seek to escape yourself, for you will have found a home within. And in that home, you will discover a wellspring of vitality that no external source can provide. Meaning is not a luxury, it is a necessity for the human soul. Without it, you are like a tree cut off from its roots, still standing, but slowly withering from within. Reconnecting with meaning is the most vital act of self-care you can offer yourself. For it is only in meaning that true spiritual nourishment is found. In that sacred connection, exhaustion gives way to aliveness. Impact, as if Carl Jung himself is giving the speech. There is a misconception that healing from spiritual exhaustion is a task of adding more self-help, more productivity, more achievements. But the truth is far simpler and far more profound. The path to renewal is not found in accumulation but in reconnection. It is not about becoming more, but about returning to what is essential, what is real within you. You are not required to transform into someone else. You are required to remember who you are beneath the layers of expectations, noise, and distraction. In moments of spiritual fatigue, your instinct may be to seek quick fixes. You look for distractions, entertainments, or external validation to numb the discomfort. Yet these are but fleeting escapes. They do not replenish your inner well. The nourishment you seek lies not outside, but within the quiet sanctuary of your own being. It is in presence, in stillness, in the courage to be with yourself without the need for constant stimulation. You may ask, how does one reconnect when life feels overwhelming? The answer begins with awareness. Pay attention to the subtle signals of your soul: fatigue, irritability, restlessness. These are not inconveniences to be suppressed, but messages inviting you to slow down, to listen. Your exhaustion is not a sign of weakness. It is a signal that you have strayed too far from your center, that you are living in a way that denies your true nature. Reconnection is an act of slowing down, of creating space within the cluttered landscape of your mind. It is giving yourself permission to be, without the compulsion to constantly do. In this space, you begin to notice what truly matters. You begin to feel again, to breathe deeply, to awaken to the richness of the present moment. This is not a passive act. It requires intention, a willingness to turn inward even when the outer world clamors for your attention. It is often in the simplest moments that reconnection happens. A walk in nature, the silence of early morning, the act of creating without purpose or judgment. These small acts become sacred when approached with presence. They remind you that life's deepest nourishment is found not in the grand, but in the immediate and the intimate. When you engage with life from this place, each moment becomes an opportunity for renewal. One of the most powerful ways to reconnect is through authentic relationships. Not relationships built on roles or expectations, but on genuine presence and vulnerability. When you share your truth with another, when you listen with an open heart, a deep exchange of energy occurs. In such moments, you are reminded of your shared humanity, of the sacredness that exists between souls. This connection heals not only you, but ripples outward, touching the lives of others in ways you may never fully comprehend. But even beyond relationships with others, the most crucial relationship is the one you have with yourself. Reconnection requires you to become your own sanctuary, your own source of compassion and understanding. To sit with yourself, not as a harsh critic, but as a gentle witness. To acknowledge your wounds without judgment. In doing so, you create an inner space where healing can unfold naturally, without force. This process is not linear. There will be days when you feel adrift again, when the exhaustion returns. But each time you choose to reconnect, even briefly, you strengthen the bridge back to yourself. Over time, this becomes less an effort and more a way of being. You begin to move through life with a grounded presence, no longer so easily swayed by the chaos of the external world. The most profound truth is that the source of your vitality has always been within you. It has never left. It merely became obscured beneath the weight of distractions, obligations, and false identities. Reconnection is the process of clearing away these obstructions, of allowing your inner light to shine through once more. As you return to this essential connection, you will notice a quiet strength emerging, a resilience that does not depend on circumstances. You will no longer need to chase after energy, for you will have tapped into a wellspring that is infinite, as long as you honor it. This is the true antidote to spiritual exhaustion. Not escape, not accumulation, but a simple, profound return to self. When you live from this place of connection, even the most ordinary moments become infused with meaning. Life ceases to be a burden to endure and becomes an unfolding mystery to engage with fully. You are no longer merely surviving. You are alive in the truest sense. This is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about being fully here, fully you, and in that presence, finding the energy, the joy, and the peace that has always been waiting for you. Your healing begins the moment you choose to return home to yourself. It's time to stop running on empty. Reconnect with your true self today. Don't ignore the signs of spiritual burnout. Start your healing journey now. Take back your energy. Reclaim your inner peace. You deserve more than survival. Awaken your soul's true power. Break free from the cycle of exhaustion. Choose self-renewal. Feel alive again. Learn how to heal your spiritual fatigue. Pause. Breathe. Reconnect. Your soul is waiting for you. Stop chasing external validation. Rediscover your inner sanctuary. This isn't just tiredness. Heal the root of your spiritual exhaustion today. Let go of the noise. Reclaim your authentic self. Your spiritual well-being matters. Invest in yourself now. From burnout to balance, take the first step towards soulful living. Embrace stillness. Find strength in presence. Enough of feeling drained. It's time for deep, lasting renewal. Awaken your inner peace. Start your transformation here.